Wall to wall. This next section that we're going to be doing is wall to wall. We've already started with the foundation rail. The bottom is set. Now we're setting the top foundation rail. In this particular case, it's wider than 8 feet. All of our foundation rail comes in an 8-foot length. So what we're going to be doing here is setting the right-hand section of this wall. Again, using the spacer stick. If you want to see the application for setting the foundation rails in detail, you could just hit the foundation rail tab. Once we have the right section of this foundation rail set, we're going to be setting the other portion that is wider than 8 feet. The last screw that we put in this top foundation rail, you'll see, is right on a stud space. We definitely want to do splices on a stud because there's a lot of weight that go in the closet, and we want to make sure that the foundation, like a foundation of a house, is the strongest portion. Now that we have this stud space established and we're going to set the left-hand portion, you can simply use a level as a straight edge, and that'll give you line from left to right to make sure that it's in line. Also level up and down, because the first foundation rail is the one that you want to make sure it's perfectly level. Now once we have the bottom rail completely set, we'll just be able to do the same thing on the top rail. Being that the right hand portion was completely set with our spacer stick, we won't need that for this last little section. We'll just use the level again as a straight edge and as a level so we can check. Like any structure, the foundation's the most important, and if these are spaced correctly, the rest of it goes together like a breeze. That's why it's very important to use the spacer stick and the level to make sure that the foundation is done correctly. Now all you have to simply do is take our partitions, set the bottom, tilt the top in. This is going to be a 3-wide section. We're going to stagger some depths. Again, just like the first video you've seen, you set the top shelf first. Setting the back 2 clips, it's a lot easier. Once those are established, you can just tilt the front down, lock it into place. And just like building a cabinet, you want to set the top shelf and the bottom shelf. This particular instance, we're up 3 spaces because we're going to have a rod below. Now we're going to go into a 16-inch depth. The first portion's 12. With Real Closet, when we transition, you do have to put a 12 next to a 16. We're actually going to secure this partition in place because the first unit is built. After I get the center portion put together, I'll go into more detail securing the partitions. Also, there is if you missed this and want to review it, there is a securing partitions tab on the site. Now the center portion is going to be narrower. Notice the partition can freely slide to fit whatever shelf you need. That's our own patented process. We set the top. Now we're going to set the bottom. Again, it's building a box. All of the other shelves can be placed later. We're just building the tops and bottoms at this point. Now we're going to transition back to 12 again. We're going to have hanging left and right and shelving in the middle that's a deeper depth. Just like we've done there, we need another 12-inch partition to transition back. Notice this partition can tilt and slide very easily to fit any size shelf, but we actually want to secure it. When they zoom in on this 5mm screw, you can see it's a system screw like you would put into a partition for a drawer glide or anything else that you're attaching. Our foundation rail has a 5mm kerfway as well. So with our installation packet, you have a magnetic tip holder that'll hold that screw. You just set it right in next to the partition. Again, hold the partition tight. That locks this into the foundation rail. Now you can see it's very stable. This third section, we don't have a standard size shelf because it's wall to wall, but that's no problem because we're going to actually cut this to size. Make sure the partitions are stout, tight in place. You want to measure front and back top and bottom, and you're going to take the smallest dimension. See how the foundation rails are top and bottom here? We're very unique compared to everybody else in the industry. You don't see any hang strips, so if you are building a bookshelf, you don't see anything in the way. Now that we're going to cut the shelf, you just basically set the saw for the distance you need, inspect the board. If there's a ding or something from shipment, we have two sides of a twin beam shelf. It's always best to put the cleanest side towards the blade that you're cutting through. You can cut this on a chop saw or a table saw. Table saw is nice if you're cutting multiple shelves because you only have to set it once. Now again, on the second shelf, I'll inspect it. Both sides look great. You can use either side. Once we cut this shelf, we're actually cutting off the holes that the shelf clips go into. We're going to have to replace them holes, but that's very simple to do. Real Closet has a template that makes it very simple to do so. Once we've cross-cut it, all you have to do is lay the shelf upside down, take the Real Closet template. We're going to replicate those holes on that end on the other side. Template just simply fits in. You slide it until it stops. Indicate the proper holes on the grid. Take our 5mm drill bit that comes with the installation packet. Drill part way into the shelf, and now we've created them holes again. At the same time you cut shelves, it's probably just as easy to cut the rods. The two oval rod ends take up exactly 1/4 inch, so whatever the shelf lengths are, you just deduct 1/4 inch for the oval end or the oval rod. Oval rod can be cut with a hacksaw. It can be a hacksaw blade and a sawzall grinder. In this particular case, we have a bandsaw that works really well. Once you have all them marked, you can cut them. Most people in the industry will use a 1mm rod that's fairly lightweight. Because our shelves can span all the way up to 59 inches, we need a rod that's fairly rigid. We use a 1.5mm, which is a pretty thick metal. It doesn't need any internal reinforcement. Once the rod is cut, we're ready to now put in the shelves and the rods. You can see by the end cut here that there's quite a bit of metal. We're quite a bit stronger than most people in the industry. Now, like the rest of the partitions and shelves that we put together, this is fairly tight wall to wall. You set the back. This particular case, we're going to set it different than the right side because we're going to do single hanging on one side and double hanging on the other. The oval rod ends virtually fit right into the system holes like a shelf clip. There's two pegs that fit in two holes. So we can set a rod at any location you want in our partitions. All you have to simply do is push them into place. In an application where you do a double rod, you want to set the shelf the third space up, allowing 2 spaces for the rod, just like we've placed right here. All you have to do to set the rod is just simply set one side in, bring the other side in, and it just drops right in. Actually will click in place. This particular closet, you can see single hanging on the left for taller items like dresses and that type of thing. And on the right hand side, it's double hanging, which is really popular for clothes. Now that we've set the 4-foot section, we're going to make a 6-foot section in the middle by using our partition extensions. Simply apply the dowel pegs. If you want to see more detail on extensions, you could later in your installation just click on the tab for extensions. We have a C-clip that actually holds the two together. The front is just simply for holding it during installation. The back is something that's permanent that you'll leave in. You'll notice the front fits fairly loose to make it easy, and the back one fits solid. To apply the back one, you want to simply line up the top, get it started with a hammer, and then tap it into place, and it'll find the bottom one and actually secure it tight. Now that those are hanging there, you're going to want to use a straight edge like a level or a board to make sure that the partition extension is straight in line with the partition on top. Again, here we use a foundation rail just like we've used to set any other partition. We have end caps because it's open-ended. This case we're screwing into one stud, which is totally acceptable as long as we have those C-clips on the back. Now your partition extension makes a 4-foot into a 6-foot. These clips on the front can be removed. Now we're actually going to set shoe shelves. The standard shelf comes with holes on the bottom to fit flat. Here, if we turn it upside down at an angle, it's a perfect shoe shelf, but it doesn't come with holes for that application. Again, using our handy jig, all you have to do is line up both edges of the shelf, the front and the side, and it's indicated on the template which holes to drill. Drill the front, our 5mm drill that comes in the installation packet. Drill the back on both sides. Now when you're setting a shoe shelf, you're going to want to have the bottom in the front and 4 spaces up in the back. See how that can tilt? If the shelf goes at an angle, so can the clip. Here again, you're going to want to start with the back clips because you can see it easier when it's up in the air, and then tilt down and lock the front. Putting it in at an angle, it's a little tougher to see the actual holes, so it's always best to start in the back and then tilt forward. Making sure again that all of them are secure into the bottom of the shelf because that's what holds everything together. It's a very integral part. Most other manufacturers have to add an additional railing, additional metal bracket. Our shoe shelves are actually part of the shelf by simply turning it over with our twin beam construction, which is proprietary to Real Closet. Now we're actually, once we have the whole system built, the very last piece is adjusting the shelves to accommodate whatever you're going to be putting in your closet. As opposed to cams and fasteners, it makes it really nice for homeowners to adjust this to fit whatever their changing needs are. And notice that the shelf can't slide out because it's locked into place.